you for the wonderful gifts that you have blessed us with, and we give them to this world to do your work. Amen. Please be seated.
So, boys and girls, what's the big B word that we do? Boys and girls? What's the big B word that we use here at it's not Bedford United. What's the big B word we use to welcome new little kids into our family? Let me hear you say it. Baptize, exactly. This morning we're going to baptize another little girl into our family of faith. And I'm really, I love doing the baptisms that we're doing this morning because I always take it as a personal sign of success. Because Sarah and Brent, how long have you two been married now?
3 years, almost.
Yes, 3 years. You all know. Now, this gal I've known like forever. And she introduced me to this fine, upstanding gentleman one day and said, I think it's about time to get married. And so we did. And I was so pleased to celebrate your wedding with the two of you. And then always, as you know, I say at these weddings, now you have a responsibility to fill our pews with new life and go forth and multiply, and you did. And they gave birth to a lovely little girl, baby Audrey, and she's a bit under the weather today, so she's not with us. But then they went forth and they had another lovely little girl that we're going to celebrate this morning, baby Amelia. So we're really, really excited about this. We're just so pleased and happy for the both of you. We've got all, I was seeing a whole bunch of little babies along here. There's another one that we're going to be baptizing pretty soon, and I'm calling this baby alley right over here on the side, right? It's where all the babies get together and they're celebrating. So it's just a wonderful time. But before we baptize baby Amelia this morning, I'm going to invite Lauren. You've got some questions for these two and for their godparents and also for the whole community. So Lauren, I'll let you do that.
Are you ready? Do you understand Jesus to be a window to God, revealing to humankind the true nature and presence of God? If so, please say, I do. Following Jesus' example, will you open your life to God, God's Spirit, inviting it to transform you and to make you a loving co-creator with God on earth? If so, please say, I do. Do you commit yourself to support the Church of Jesus Christ and its ministry? If so, please say, I do. Do you accept the responsibility on speaking on Amelia's behalf? And will you endeavor to show her the Christian life and to grow with her in faith? If so, please say, I do. Wonderful. You can be seated or stand. I understand there's godparents. Wonderful. Please stand. I have a question for you too. Do you, the godparents of Amelia, promise to exercise your care, love, and wisdom with Amelia with commitment and responsibility? If so, please say, we do. All right, please be seated. And you all know what comes next. Congregation, please stand. As a baptized and baptizing church, do you commit yourselves to support and nurture Amelia, her sister Audrey, Sarah, and Brent, within a community which worships God and which seeks to incarnate God's presence in the world? If so, please say, I do. Please be seated.
So Hannah, this little girl is a potential future minister in the United Church of Canada. I'm telling her this right now. So I'm going to invite you to pour the baptismal waters in here, okay? Can you lift those up? Pour it up. Hold that jug higher. Excellent. Now, why don't you put your hand right there? Okay, I'll put my hand right there. And we're all going to do a repeat after me prayer, okay? Dear God, bless this water, and bless baby Amelia, whom we're about to baptize. with this water. Amen. Thank you. Okay, can I take this little take? Oh, you're adorable. Oh, my goodness me. Oh, my word. What is the full name of Amelia?
Amelia Margaret Adams.
Amelia Margaret Adams. I baptize you in the name of God, our Creator and Source. I baptize you in the name of Jesus Christ, our spiritual master and friend. Yes. And I baptize you in the name of the Holy Spirit, God's living presence in the world.
I mark you with the sign of the cross to designate you as a disciple of Jesus.
All right. Now let's put our hands on her. Okay. Lauren, come on over. I'm going to invite the congregation to stand. Yes, look at you. And let's hold our hands up like this. Oh, wonderful God. We thank you for this beautiful little girl, for the incredible gift that she is to her mom and dad and her whole family, and that she is to our community. And we just pray that your spirit already alive in her may continue to grow and fill her entire being and shine through her. And as she grows older and continues to shine with your presence, make her a wonderful blessing, a source of your life and goodness to the world. In the name of our brother Jesus, we pray. Amen. Would you light the candle? So, isn't she just? My goodness. Congratulations, Sarah and Brett. Let's give baby Amelia the BUC wave here. Yeah, look at all these people waving at you. That's right. That's welcoming you into the church family. And give mom and dad a great big hand of appreciation and congratulations. Lauren, would you come in?
And here we have a prayer shawl lovingly knitted by our congregation to welcome you into our family, and that will hold you close like a big BUC hug.
Thank you, folks. Okie dokie, here you go. Nice little burp there. She's right at home. Okay, boys and girls, you can all head off to Sunday school now with Lauren, and we'll continue with our scripture reading here in worship.
This morning, Reverend Hart is speaking about Facebook and the internet. So as we listen to our Bible reading from the first letter of Peter, written to small Christian communities dispersed around the Mediterranean in the early days of Christianity, how do Peter's words then speak to our use of the internet and Facebook today? Something to ponder as we listen to this reading. For those of you who would like to read along in a Pew Bible, I am reading from 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 through 17. All of you must be of one mind. Be sympathetic, loving, compassionate, humble. Never return evil for evil or insult for insult, but give a blessing instead. You were called to do this, to inherit a blessing yourself. For whoever would love life and sees good days must keep the tongue from evil and the lips from deceitful talk. They must turn from evil to good. They must seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of our God are on the just, and the ears of our God attend to their prayers. But the face of our God is turned against evildoers. Who is going to harm you if your goal is to do what is right? But even if you do suffer for what is right, count it a blessing. Don't fear what they fear, and don't be afraid, and don't worry. In your hearts, set Jesus apart as holy and sovereign. Should anyone ask you the reason for this hope of yours, be ever ready to reply, but speak gently and respectfully. Keep your conscience clear so that, whenever you are defamed, those who slander your way of life in Christ may be shamed. If it should be God's will that you suffer, it is better to do so for good deeds than for evil ones. May God's Spirit grant us inspiration and wisdom from this reading.
And thank you, Barry, for sharing that reading with us. I must confess I'm feeling a mixture of emotions these days. When I baptize these little tykes like baby Amelia, I recognize that my days of baptizing little tykes like baby Amelia is coming to a close here shortly. And so if I take longer with any future, with that baptism or any others, you'll know why. I'm just savoring every single moment. I'm also really quite excited, though, because next Sunday, and spread the word around, apparently we're going to get the word on who our new staff team is moving forward, and I'm really excited for all of you because what's really obnoxious about this whole process is that nobody tells me anything around here anymore. And I haven't got a single clue as to who it is, but I am, and I did authorize that team that whoever you bring in had better be good, and they tell me that they are going to be really amazing. So I think next Sunday, I'm really excited. So get out here next Sunday and tell your friends about it because we're going to hear what's cooking in terms of this new team coming on board. So I think that's really an exciting moment in our life together. Now, when I talked to the staff about talking about what I'm going to talk about with you today, they said, David, it's so old hat, like it's kind of boring, but then we got chatting about it. I said, yeah, I want to talk about Facebook this morning. I'm a slow picker-upper, and I've been kind of slow. As most of you know, I do post to Facebook sometimes. I'm on there, but I'm not one of your traditional statistics for Facebook. But I have, is Mac Burt here today? No, I don't think so. Anyways, Mac is our computer whiz IT genius around the place, and so they sort of fix our computers and whatnot when we're going through stuff. And he and I have these little conversations, philosophical conversations from time to time when he's in working on our computers. And he made a comment to me some time ago, and I thought it was really prescient. He said to me, this whole internet thing, he said to me, we're really in a period of it's like the crazy Wild West out there. He was talking in terms of the whole use. The internet, he was telling me, is still actually totally in its infancy. And because it's totally in its infancy, there's all sorts of craziness going on around the use of the internet in the world today. And then, of course, that comment came to mind when this recent Cambridge Analytica scandal hit the airwaves, right? And so I'm kind of a keener around all this stuff, and so I thought, oh, this is really kind of interesting. So I thought, yeah, Mac's comment was really prescient. This is exactly what's going on. And it made me think about, because I actually, Danielle, my wife, is much more of a Facebook user than me, and so she's the one who always tells me what's going on in your lives primarily, because I'm not necessarily clicking in all every day, but she does. And so I've learned a lot about it from her. So I thought, I want to talk about this a little bit this morning, because it is a relevant kind of conversation. How many of you use Facebook? Put up your hands. How many of you don't use Facebook? Oh, now that's real interesting. So there's a fair number of you who don't use Facebook. So you folks may be thinking, David, I'm not interested. I don't want to hear a sermon dealing with Facebook and the internet. But let me share with you a few stats as to why you non-Facebook users should be paying attention to the use of Facebook and the internet more generally in our day and age. So I like doing this kind of research, right? So it's easy to find, and some of you don't know about this stuff, some of you might, but I think it's kind of interesting, because I didn't know a lot of this stuff. over 2.2 billion people use Facebook on the planet today. Another 100 million use Instagram. That's 2.2 billion people use Facebook. An average of 1.5 billion people log on to Facebook every single day. Okay? 5 new Facebook profiles are created. 5 are created every single second. Every second. They say that more women than men use Facebook, but it's not far off. It's pretty equal. 30% of Facebook users are between the ages of 25 and 34. So that's still the most common demographic, still a younger demographic. So you older people who don't use it, you're allowed because, you know, we're not in that. The highest traffic occurs midweek between 1 and 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Now, I thought this one too is 4.75 billion. So 5 billion pieces of content are shared daily. People are posting comments, pictures, stuff. 5 billion of them every single day. And they say that's a 94% increase from August of 2012. Every 60 seconds on Facebook, I like this one. Every 60 seconds, so every minute, well, I'm talking right in this minute, 500,000 people are posting comments. And 300,000 statuses are updated, and 136,000 photos are uploaded. That's every single minute. The average time spent per Facebook visit is 20 minutes. 42% of people who have businesses and who market their businesses in the world today say that Facebook is critical to their business. And there are 83 million fake profiles as well. Now, those aren't all non-existent profiles. Some of those are from people who just want a second account and they don't want it linked to their personal identity, right? You may not want to use it. You may not like it. But for better or for worse, the internet spawned Facebook is a human cultural phenomena that we absolutely cannot ignore because it has fundamentally changed the way all human beings on this planet live. How we sleep, how we eat, who we sleep with, who we vote for. Facebook has an impact on all of it. So that's why this recent scandal with Cambridge Analytica has been so profoundly significant. So Mark Zuckerberg, who is, God, that guy must be rich. Have you thought about it? My goodness. He started this whole Facebook kind of empire. And he tells about the recent mess. And I was kind of interested to hear exactly, because I heard, you're sort of hearing some of the media stuff, but I thought it might be interesting to share with you just a wee bit about what happened there again. And some of you may know this stuff, but for those of you who don't, it might be helpful for you to know about it. Apparently, there was from Cambridge University, there was this sort of computer or social scientist guy by the name of Alexander Kogan, who developed this app. All of you know what apps are. Who developed this app that had to do with personality profiling. But in order for this app to work, people had to give it permission to access their Facebook data. And so this guy, this Alexander Kogan, put out this app, and it was sort of one of these things, figure out how your personality works, and you know, people are interested in this kind of stuff. 300,000 people downloaded this app. I don't know if he told people or not, but whenever you get a new app or something or other, you have to, you've got to read the fine detail, you scroll down the thing, and it says, do you agree or disagree, right? And how many of you actually read the fine print in those things? None of you read the fine print, right? And you just say, yeah, I want the app, and tick on the box that says yes. Well, the fine print in the app must have said that the app didn't just access your Facebook data, it accessed the data from all your friends as well, right? So the result was that this Alexander Kogan guy who developed this app at Cambridge University actually ends up acquiring the data of millions upon millions of Facebook users. And then, for reasons I'm not quite sure of yet, he distributes all of that data with Cambridge Analytica. Now, how many of you have researched Cambridge Analytica? It's kind of an interesting little story. So Cambridge Analytica was started by Robert Mercer and Steve Bannon. How many of you know that name, Steve Bannon? Many of you know the name Steve Bannon, Mr. Trump's infamous former advisor, right? So Steve Bannon and Robert Mercer, who is an ultra kind of conservative business person in the States, started Cambridge Analytica as a company, they actually started in Britain, as a company that would provide political data mining and political consulting for various political organizations around the world. And Ted Cruz, we all know who Ted Cruz is, Ted Cruz and all sorts of people in the Republican administration in the United States ended up relying upon the services of Cambridge Analytica to do market profiling and data profiling of potential voters, right? So as it turns out, Alexander Kogan was never allowed to share this Facebook data with the Cambridge Analytica people, which was illegal and it was against the regs that Facebook had installed. But it's not regulated very precisely. It's not monitored very precisely, and so he went ahead and did it. And I guess when Mark Zuckerberg found out about this, he said to Cambridge Analytica, you got to give all that data back, you got to delete all that data. But did they? They didn't delete any of the data, is the thing. And then they used all that data to profile millions upon millions upon millions of American voters, but also British voters around the whole Brexit thing in Britain as well. They used that data to target millions upon millions of voters with information and advertising that would just tip them over the edge to vote in a particular certain way. The Republican administration in the States, I mean, is just totally involved in this. What we don't yet know about this whole situation is how Cambridge Analytica's whole involvement was linked with the whole Russian campaign of disinformation, the whole Russian campaign of what they call trolling and trying to create chaos and change election results as well around the world. But that's what Robert Mueller is looking into. And I do watch that with great interest to see what's going to emerge from all of that. The writer of the letter of Peter is writing in a time in the early church. And so some people think because it's the first letter of Peter that it was actually the disciple Peter, but scholars don't think it's actually the disciple of Peter, but it might have been a disciple of Jesus' disciple Peter or someone like that. And the disciple, whoever it was who wrote this first letter of Peter, is trying in the early days of the Mediterranean world, the Greco-Roman Empire, he's encouraging and nurturing the development of this whole new kind of disparate, spread all over the place, non-regulated kind of Jesus movement that's springing up all around the Mediterranean. And he would have loved the internet because he could have sent this letter out and it would have gone to 1 million of these small communities and churches around the Mediterranean. But instead, this letter has to go by, somebody's pocket, and they got to travel weeks, sometimes months, and they're traveling all around the Mediterranean trying to share this kind of insight and message about how this person, Jesus, is calling people to live in the world. And the early church was a pretty interesting kind of place. We sometimes think that it was very structured like our church today, but it was a totally unstructured, kind of chaotic, from the ground up kind of movement, right? But what the early people in the church recognized, and what they were trying to spread around, they're trying to tell the story of Jesus, and they were very intentional about saying, this Jesus character, he had a mission. And what was his mission? The mission of this Jesus character, it wasn't to talk about him being the Son of God and that you got to go to heaven when you die and all of this kind of stuff. It wasn't even telling people to have belief in God. What they were trying to spread through their letters and their message about Jesus was a message that was very, very countercultural and counter-political to their day and age. Jesus lived in, and the early church found itself in the Roman Empire, which was an empire that was characterized by power and control and high levels of violence, all right? And what the early church was trying to say is the message of Jesus was entirely opposite to that. The message of Jesus was, how do we create a more loving, less controlling, less manipulative, less violent kind of society? And that's what this letter that 1 Peter is trying to distribute around the Mediterranean as well. And that's what that's the message that's contained in. And they understood that violence and power and the manipulation of control isn't just something that happens through force and through spears and through swords or through guns or through tanks or through missiles. What did they say? What's the thing that we heard Barry read this morning about what they encourage the early Christians in the early church to do? What they say is this, okay? They're trying to talk about how do you communicate who you are with the culture around you, and how do you change the culture by what you say and do. And so this is what they say. This is what he says. The writer says, be sympathetic, loving, compassionate, and humble. And what are the next words? Barry, do you remember them? And keep your tongues from evil and your lips from deceitful talk. There, Barry, I don't mean that for you. You said that. Barry's a good guy. He knows how to do this. Keep your tongues from evil and your lips from deceitful talk. Turn from evil to good, seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of our God are on the just, and the ears of our God attend our prayers and our words. The internet and Facebook has become a vehicle of manipulation and control and warfare. What the Russians are doing is a form of warfare against the West using the internet. So the internet and Facebook has, for all its wonderful qualities, it has also become a vehicle for warfare, for slander, for expressing the basest and darkest intentions of the human heart. It's doing exactly the opposite of what the whole Jesus movement was attempting to do in its day and age, to spread peace and to spread love and to spread justice through the words that we express. So here's my very simple point with you today. It's merely this. Elon Musk said after the Cambridge Analytica scandal, he said, I'm canceling. You all know who Elon Musk is, right? He's one of the most brilliant, another one of these incredibly brilliant technology gurus in the world today. And he said immediately, because of the risks associated with Facebook, and he gets it. He gets the larger social milieu of Facebook and the internet. He said, I'm canceling my account. How many of you have canceled your account? A few of you. Interesting. We got a few techies over here who know the implications of this too. So, but I think Elon Musk is sort of blowing in the wind because Facebook has become a movement that has such an incredible power for good as well, because it's such a powerful medium of communication and connectivity that we're not going to let it go. Or at least if we don't give up Facebook, something else will come in its place, right? But my simple point with all of us today is this. We need to be, and this is what Mac Burt would say to all of us today, we need to utilize this medium which with a much higher level of sensitivity and awareness for its potential for darkness and evil and destructiveness in the world. And we need to be very, very careful, according to the writer of 1 Peter, that the words we use and the messages we put up on Facebook and the messaging that we share when we click on like and we forward to somebody else, that we're very, very sensitized to the potential for our words and our information to be manipulated or to be skewed or to be utilized for dark purposes. Because as with so many human technologies, the Facebook can be an incredible medium for spreading the countercultural message that Jesus came to spread, a message of love and compassion and justice in the world, but it can also work the opposite way entirely. And we've seen it very, very clearly in this latest Cambridge Analytica scandal, how our use of the internet and online information can be used in dark, nefarious ways and can be used against us, which is exactly the opposite, I think, of what Mark Zuckerberg or of what the Jesus movement would be all about. I like the Cherokee story about the Cherokee elder who was once talking to his grandson, and he once said, you know, in every human being there's this battle that goes on inside of us, right? There's this war that's going on in every human being between thinking thoughts and communicating thoughts that are dark and that are jealous and that are hateful and that are mean. He said there's this battle between these two wolves in us, he said. And one of these wolves expresses all these kinds of dark, mean, negative, nasty thoughts. And there's another wolf that is a kind and loving and expresses kind, caring, compassionate, loving thoughts, tries to help people, right? And the little grandson says to his Cherokee grandfather, which wolf wins? And the Cherokee elder says, some of you may have heard this story, the one you feed. I have seen, even with family members and with people who I know and respect and care for, a feeding of a lot of darkness and negativity and discourse that is not helpful or healthy for our society. And when we feed that stuff, the internet has the capacity to just take it and magnify it and spread it in ways that are absolutely profound. And so our role as Christians in the world today is to make sure that whenever we use that medium or that format, that what we're putting out there is going to contribute to light and to love and to goodness into the world and not into darkness. Namaste, BUC. Amen.
Come and rest
and humble is God's heart. God's love will light the way that leads to peace. Surely you shall see God's goodness and God's grace. Rest now in God's embrace. Come and rest in the arms of God. Come and rest. Leave your worry and fear behind your feet. Make your home in the heart of God. God will dry every tear. For the burden you carry will fade within God's care. Come and rest in the arms of God. Do not be afraid. God heals the broken heart. Through grief and disbelief, God still remains. God and God alone will be your soul's true rest. Fall in the arms of God. Come and rest in the arms of God. Leave your worry and fear behind your feet. Make your home in the heart of God. God will dry every tear. For the burden you carry will fade within God's care. Come and rest in the arms of God. You are not alone, for God is always near. Come place your doubt and fear within God's care. God will give you rest and soothe your weary soul. Dwell in the heart of God. Come and rest in the arms of God. Leave your worry and fear behind your feet. Make your home in the heart of God. God will dry every tear. For the burden you carry will fade within God's care. Come and rest in the arms of God.
Before the community prayer, I want to apologize for something I said this morning. In ad-libbing the land acknowledgement, I used the word willingly, which is certainly a debatable and loaded word, so I wanted to apologize for my insensitivity in the ad-libbing there, so I'm very sorry for that. Let us join together in the prayers of the community. This morning we talk about the power that connects us in our modern world, the power of the internet. Let us look to the internet for inspiration, but also for places of pain. At Kelsey BEW speaks of how my boyfriend got pulled over by the police for giving a beggar change at 7-Eleven, a thread. Her tweets go on to explain how her boyfriend was pulled over, racially profiled, because he gave change to someone that the police had said was known for drug trafficking. Kelsey explains how terrified she was when she didn't hear from her boyfriend for hours, who was just going down to drop a friend off at the airport. Racial profiling like this happens every day in the United States, in Canada, and throughout the world. But it's important that we share these stories through things like the Black Lives Matter movement, so that we recognize that these things are happening in the world and we can work towards fixing them. At Tundi O'Lernian, we suffer from systemic disregard for the working class people in this country. Flint, Michigan is just one of the ugliest examples. Last week we spoke of Flint, Michigan, and the problems they're having with their water. The government is helping corporations to fill bottled water, to make profit when people are living in homes without their basic human right. Again, this story pains us, but reminds us that there is work to do in the world. At Kelsey Christ says, reading The Hunger Games in 2008, what a crazy, unrealistic story. In 2018, children are going to the Capitol to fight for their right not to be murdered by each other, and a creepy-looking TV star is pretending that nothing is wrong. The challenges with the NRA, the choices of government officials to take money over life. There's a tweet that I couldn't find from years ago that said, when the laws in the United States didn't change after Sandy Hook, that made it okay. CBC Day 6 tweets from Julie Lalonde, I'm not surprised that the things we've been writing off as just losers on the internet resulted in people dying. This was in reference to the van attack this week. Another tweet went on to say about how these 10 people won't have a concert to support them, to raise money for their families. They had their 2 minutes of silence on the day that it happened, and they'll be forgotten. There's a lot of negativity and pain on the internet, but we need to be the positivity, and we can find it as well. At Clint Smith III says, Beyonce had Coachella named after her. Kendrick Lamar won a Pulitzer Prize, and Black Panther has made more money than Titanic. Black History Month is every month, every day, every year, all the time. In reference to the van attack, News 95.7 shared a story from Maclean's about the cop who didn't shoot. The police officer, who very well could have been recognized as a hero for taking down the van driver, but who chose to show compassion and not take him down, but to arrest him, to help him find justice. At Guy Gunarte says, 60 years ago, my father was a teenager and a new immigrant in London. He used to sneak into the bookstore every Saturday and sit on the floor and teach himself English. Yesterday, he returned to pick his son's novel off the shelf. This universe is spectacular. One person I follow on Twitter is the Dalai Lama. He says, there are always problems to face, but it makes a difference if our minds are calm. On the surface, we may get upset, but it makes a difference if we were able to stay calm in the depths of our minds. Help us to stay calm. Help us to fight injustice. Help us to be a voice of positivity in the world. Amen. I had one more tweet I wanted to share with you. At Liz Hackett says, maybe aliens haven't made contact yet because our internet reaches all the way there and they Googled us before the first date. I'd really like to meet aliens, so let's try and be positive, send good messages out to the internet. Maybe they'll come check us out. Have a good week, everyone.